potential Blackbriar Woods, that has been moved to our June meeting. So, is there anyone here for that? Okay. Oh dear, they didn't tell you. Bill him for a good 2 hours worth of travel time for that. So.
How it works.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, sorry about that. I guess they didn't correspond with you, but Eric Mitchell requested that they be moved to the June meeting. So, there are new agendas for the public. I think copies if there's anyone else.
There's a couple left up here.
Okay, there's a couple left, so. All right, so let's head up to the top. Discussion with Frank and Elizabeth Keene regarding map 3, lot 1113, Longbrook Road for a conditional use permit. Oh, I was gonna go look at that. Okay, 12 by 20 shed, within the 100-foot wetland setback district. Is there someone here to speak on that?
Yeah, right.
Come on forward, you can introduce yourself for the name, for the record.
Here, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm Frank Keene.
Hi.
And my first time coming to one of these. I guess, what do you usually go over?
They have a copy of the plan that you submitted, with the,
Okay, we
what
should
you're
all have a copy
proposing.
of the plan.
It was in the back of your packet by the plans, but if you just explain what you're trying to do and why.
Yeah, so basically, I was planning to build a 12 by 20 shed. I brought up the plot plan that I got from the builder when they built the home, and the building pocket in my backyard where I would normally put the shed, the way the builder set up my neighbor's house, which is uphill from mine, their foundation drain runs right across my building pocket. The one spot I could find that wouldn't affect any drainage in the neighborhood is actually just across the 100-foot setback line. There's a raised area. I was gonna do the 30 by 30 hard pack area on the raised area so that I wouldn't affect any of the drainage. So that's why I'm requesting the variance to put it there.
Can you give me an idea of where Longbrook is?
Right off of Addison. You know where Addison is?
Okay, vaguely.
Right off 114.
Off 114,
Take
okay.
Shirley Hill. Immediate right is Addison.
Okay,
And then the first major street on the right is Longbrook Road.
on the right.
Yeah.
Okay. So do we know, I don't have any topo with me or get an idea of where we are as far as in town.
I can show you on the map if
That would be good,
help.
that would help.
That would just,
To give us an idea of what exactly the wetland is behind you? Is this a wetland that buffers a creek or?
right here, so none of the prime wetlands or the wetland, the large wetland areas are near our neighborhood here. Basically, as you put it, it's surface water areas. Yeah.
Okay,
So there's, my lot is one of these in here, I'm not sure which one, from this map, but,
okay,
that's about all I know from these.
okay. Okay, the question that's before us, this to receive an excusement of building within the outer 50 foot, according to the zoning ordinances, he is required to have a wetland scientist go out and take a review of it. I offered to go get a look at this wetland this week to get an idea of what we were looking at. I didn't get a chance to do that, I'm sorry, I just got back into town, so, I think, there's two options we can go with this commission. We can either say to, Keene?
Yes.
We can either say, you're gonna have a wetland scientist get us a report, maybe Mr. Shower can meet you out in the hallway if you'd like. But the other option is, I offered to Derek and Brian to take a look at the wetland and get an idea about whether or not, I think, it depends. If it's a small isolated system, if it's a part of a big system, it really depends on what we're looking at.
It shows right on the plot plan, pretty much, the segment that I intercept.
Right, it looks like
Pretty
maybe
narrow
you tried to
strip.
roughly sketch that in. Is that rough,
No, no.
rough sketch? No.
Show you from the top.
Okay.
The wetland area is this strip right back here.
Yes, yes, exactly. And you're saying you want to build it right here, is that right?
Yes, it's just across
Just
the
that little
the
sketch,
100-foot
okay.
setback.
So, without having seen the location, I can write it a note to myself to do it on Friday. Ordinarily, we would just say you need to have a wetland scientist give us a review of the functions of what this is before we would recommend to allow you to do that. I offered to just run out and take a look at it. I haven't had a chance to do that. But, what we can do is, we could leave it as that, and if anybody else wants to join me, or if you trust me just running out there and saying, hey, I think we need to have a wetland scientist review or not, that would be my suggestion to the commission. I don't know if anybody has any problems with that, or if anybody else has anything else to say. This would be the time to jump in.
Basically, the area, just explain kind of what I know about it. This little channel is actually, turns into a real slow-moving brook, right after the spring thaw. That's about it, and then it dries back up again. So I think that's what they're marking here, because I've walked back out there, and like I said, first thing in the spring, it's a little stream. Other than that, it's just woods.
Okay. David, you don't have your magic computer to pull up a topo for us, unfortunately. So, oh, no, it's okay.
By the time it comes up, we.
Yeah. You know, it really depends. Some of these wetlands really need the 100-foot buffer, and some of the wetlands don't. You know, it's a 12 by 12 shed, so I'd hate to ask you to go out and spend $500 to hire a wetland
Well, that was
scientist.
the thing, I didn't know even how to contact them. I
Peter's
researched
like,
them
500,
online.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Get your business every week.
or if anybody else has any other comment, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
small shed, but these are our ordinances, so let's
Well,
go back and forth.
It was recommended to me that it could be waived, and that's why I didn't pursue that
That's why we're
further.
discussing it, right?
Yeah.
And remember, when we talked about adopting these, we talked about needing to be reasonable and flexible.
Right.
When it came to these sort of minor intrusions into the setback, so I think we ought to keep that in mind.
Well, do you have a recommendation?
My recommendation is that I think we ought to allow it.
Okay.
I think you should go look at it.
I don't know if it helps, but my neighbor's shed is like right next door across the property line, and they already have an approved
No,
permit
no
for it.
tattling.
Well, no, they've
Yeah.
they've got an approved permit for it, that's why I was suggesting that, you know, and as you can see here, the wetlands are towing further into the property line on their
Right.
side. Theirs is further back,
Right,
so,
different timing.
yeah, I didn't know if there was precedence, basically.
Nick?
Question, timelines, as far as this is a conditional use permit, when is it being heard, when does he need?
It is scheduled for let's see, for this Thursday night,
Okay.
the 27th.
Yeah.
I guess that's tomorrow
Tomorrow.
night.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
How far off it is?
Anyone
Well,
else?
I think
How
it's,
far off the wetland line are you? The back of your
Did the photocopy
foundation?
not show it?
It's very faint.
It's very,
Oh, it's faint, yeah, this little block here is
Oh.
the 30 by 30 hardpack area
oh,
with the shed.
that's, oh,
Right
it's not
across
this
the
one
line.
over,
So,
okay, it's this one. So how many feet are you from the edge of your,
it's somewhat
I mean, from the
flexible right
water,
now.
from the wet-
I
from the
basically
wetland.
just said the majority of the shed is gonna be over the line, so I need the variance. Otherwise, I need to completely pull it in
Right,
where
why
it's
can't you
gonna
pull it closer?
because it'll actually interfere with the drainage from my neighbor's foundation drain. Water channels across there constantly, and that's my building pocket in the backyard. The way the builder laid it out, I have water channeling on a regular basis across the building pocket, but I don't in the setback. Otherwise, I'd just put it right in the building pocket.
Aren't you worried
There's a
your
low
shed's gonna
swale
flood?
area. that
Yeah,
kinda
basically,
Cuts between the,
where you see that rectangle, I had also sketched in kind of a surrounding area that was just a circular thing around that rectangle. That's just designating the raised up area. So if you look out in my woods, it's fairly low, and then there's this high spot that's pretty big. And I just picked an area kinda on that to set the shed, so it'd be out of any drainage.
Oh.
It shouldn't interfere with any drainage to the wetlands,
When
so.
you look at, like, here's this measurement is 68 feet. I mean, 60 and 60. I mean, it looks like it's almost 70 feet before the potential back of the shed.
Right, but it's uneven terrain
Right,
in the middle of the lawn. This is it.
right, I'm just kinda eyeballing it to get an idea. So we're really talking about just, he wants a waiver of the outer 50 foot of the buffer.
Yes.
okay, I said, so you're saying that the shed then is gonna go on a rise? It is not going to be in the drainage swale to either side of you, so you've got a
No, right
slope
now,
and a
currently,
rise.
it's a raised area already.
It's already a
All I was
raised
gonna
area.
do was dig down, say 6 inches, 8 inches,
shed
and
on
then
top.
build it right back up with hardpack. That way, it wouldn't wash away over time. So. I thought it was the most reasonable solution, but required me to spend more money and time, unfortunately.
Carlos recommends approving it. Jean suggested I go
Got
look at it. Susan?
Can I
Colin?
add a little bit more?
Yes?
I mean, the intent was to make sure that we preserve the functions and values of the wetland. And I don't believe that this sort of proposal compromises those functions and values in any way. That's just my personal opinion. Others may differ. But I think this is one of those cases where it's reasonable to relax the ordinance.
David? Not to put anybody on the spot or anything.
No, I tend to agree with what Collins has said. I mean, clearly, we're just over the line here, so it's a pretty minor impact. And that was my first thought was, well, why not be in the line until he explained about the other drainage? And that's why actually going to look at it kind of makes sense too, because it could be the case that if it were located within the building envelope, it could actually go into the drainage, which may be going down to the wetland.
Yeah,
I
that's the
don't know
thing,
where it's going.
realistically, I was trying to find any spot in the backyard where it's building pocket. It's either uneven where I'd have to build it up and would probably interfere with drainage into the wetlands, or, you know, really majorly interfere with the drainage from the neighbor's yard channeling down the hill, so.
But that's
That's
why
the mystery.
looking at
Changing
things on
down the
site
road.
always, you know, gives a much clearer picture of what's going on, so.
Yeah.
Maybe we should leave it as, I'll go take a quick look at it, and if I don't see anything that I believe is going to be exceptional or problematic, we will get the go-ahead to zoning to allow you to waive the ordinance. How's everybody feel about that?
Yes.
Everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, do we need to make a vote on that, or a motion or anything? I don't think we do, actually. Do we? I'm a little unclear. I'm looking at Derek.
Yeah, I
think we
would
need
say,
vote on-
yeah, because you're making a recommendation to the planning board
Okay,
on the conditional use permit.
someone make a motion.
I move that we would vote to recommend it subject to a favorable review from Kimberly's inspection.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Anyone else? Susan?
Nope, I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right,
So
we'll
the
let
only-
you know.
So the only other questions, I was planning to attend tomorrow night, that's overcome by events then?
Oh, I don't know. Does it
'Cause-
need to not, if we tell zoning, or if we tell planning, if we just send a note to planning saying we don't have a problem with it?
I can talk to Brian in the morning, and it is still scheduled for tomorrow night, so.
All right, I will go by tomorrow sometime in the afternoon, so it's gonna be late in the day before I get an answer to you.
Okay, well, I'll be here tomorrow night. Are you
Probably.
coming tomorrow night?
No,
Ah.
but you'll get a note from me either way.
Okay,
I'll be here tomorrow night.
Kaz will be here.
all right, thank you very much.
Okay. Remind me to not make myself do anything else. Okay, moving on. Discussion with Fournier Revocable Trust regarding map 7 lot 82, landscaping business site plan on Patty Hill Road. Okay. We have several pieces of correspondence regarding this. Let me see if I can introduce this briefly. We took a site walk of this. This is a potential landscaping business. There is currently a landscaping business operating on the site. There is going to be an expansion of that. Okay, we have test results, pit testing results that I told Derek, or I didn't think we needed everybody to know that's Blackbriar. Durango. Let's see, do we have this plan in front of us somewhere? Henry Bridge,
I
sorry.
believe Patty distributed it in for the April meeting.
There we
Probably don't
go.
have it.
Okay, oh, anybody got those plans? I don't have it, but I've seen it. Oh, here we go. Is it? No, off Mass Road?
No.
No, that one. Okay, anyway. So somewhere we should have plans. Does anyone have plans?
No.
No. Nick does. Good job, Nick gets bonus points. Does the applicant have a plan we can look at? Hooray, all right. Let's post that on that board over there, please.
I've got two, if you wanna take a closer look, depends on how good your eyes are.
We'll just need some pointing, I think, at this point.
Supposed to be copies.
Actually, I've got, another one here.
I
Excellent.
read this at work.
Excellent, thanks, okay. We'll share this one. Derek has a plan for that side of the table, and then maybe the applicant can give you guys a copy. Okay.
No, I'm
Alright, maybe what I should do is have the applicant present this first and explain what we're looking at. Collis, Kim, myself attended the site walk. Yes. Nick, you were there? Yes. So. Okay. There's another one over there. on the floor.
That I have.
Want to take a look at that one down there?
No, I was just saying maybe that side, that table could use one. Thank you. Why don't you go ahead and state your name for the record, sir?
Okay, good evening, my name is Don Duval from the surveyor. Brian Fournier, with me is his attorney, and Peter Schauer, the soil scientist. Essentially, this is the same plan that we've presented back in April, was it? April or May, that we utilized for the site walk. We have not changed anything on it. We understand that we're gonna be required to do some drainage studies, not the drainage studies, but drainage, take care of increase in runoff if there is such. The question before us when we stopped was there wetlands filled? At the site walk, Collis asked the soil scientist to dig several test pits. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that he indicated roughly where they should be. I have Peter Schauer answer that, but basically, Peter Schauer went ahead, dug the test pits, and prepared the report, which I believe you have a copy of, is that correct?
Yes.
You have a copy of this plan.
Yes.
Since then, somebody has made a report to DES that they may or may not have been wetlands filled.
Okay.
I believe Peter Schauer again has contacted DES, and they have a site walk scheduled for June 2nd, I believe. So we're in the process of handling that. Once we put to bed, once and for all, whether there was wetlands filled or not filled, then we will get into the drainage criteria necessary with the engineer, Bob Rook, but we're not going into that until we put this particular issue to bed.
Can you tell us what exactly the plan is for? What are
Pardon?
you proposing to do?
As it is, there's an existing landscaping business working here. One way or another, there was misconstrued whether he's allowed to or not allowed. The upshot is, we're before the planning board for a site plan review to, let's call it, legitimize an existing business on the site. Basically, we've had some preliminary talks with the planning board. There's a salt shed that has to be relocated. He's proposing to build a, if you want to call it barn/garage to store his vehicles inside. On the site now, there is some storage bins for stone and whatnot. There's a small, what they call fuel station. They are all basically on the southerly lot line of this lot. When we get to the planning board, the intent is to take anything that's along that northerly line, move it away from that northerly property line and bring it to the, move it from the southerly line, bring it northerly. I believe it turns out that this is grandfathered as far as wetland setbacks, but we volunteered to impose on ourselves a 50-foot wetland setback. I think when the conservation and planning board was out there, you noticed where the wetlands were. Subsequent to that, Peter Schauer went back, indicated a small, it was basically an additional 3 flags down in the area of this
Total
pipe,
slope?
this pipe, at the total slope, correct, right by the wall.
Where the wall corners on?
Right, by the southerly property line. I think what I'll do is I'll just have, since most of the issues seem to deal with is there or is not wetlands filling, I'll let Peter Shower, since he's a soil scientist, a wetland scientist, he can address those issues.
Okay.
Okay?
Good evening, Peter Shower for the record. On April 8th and May 7th, I performed test pit excavations on the site in this location to determine if there were any wetlands in the area of the fill that had been impacted, alleged wetlands, excuse me, that had been impacted by the fill. First of all, I started upslope, and in the drainage pattern, there's a concave drainage pattern right here. I started right there at the top, in the trees, the shrubs that have been planted along here, the conifers, to determine that there was no wetland at that location right here, which is important to figure out if that was following that drainage pattern down through the site to another drainage pattern that was off-site. Finding number, I dug a trench about 40 feet long across the area where I thought the pattern of the drainage would have gone to see if there was any wetland soils that had been filled or excavated in that location. And that's right in front of the salt shed. It's about 6 to 8 feet deep, and it's about 40 feet long. That's that dark black layer. I don't know if you got it on your plan. You might have a different plan that,
Yeah, we're not looking at the same plan.
yeah, it's,
Oh, yeah, cost.
there is a plan that came with the report.
Oh, but the plan on the table in front of me is not that plan.
Can I borrow your plan?
Yeah, that shows the test pits.
Ah.
I'm way ahead of that.
That's what's wrong with it.
It might make more sense now. Also, we dug a test pit right here, which is right off the corner of where the proposed barn is going to be located for infiltration of the rooftop runoff. And that test pit is labeled 1 and 2. And why do I label one test pit 1 and 2? Because they were so drastically different on the uphill and downhill sides that I described both sides. Because it was in a cut and fill location. And that's labeled as 1 and 2 in the figures. I also, after our site walk on April, I can't remember what day it was, but it was on a Saturday with the planning board and the conservation commission, I had a recommendation to dig more test pits along the edge of the fill and to come back and check the actual wetland mapping in this location. I did that, and as Don says, we located another small pocket of wetland that went right up north of the wall, and it's in the roadway, actually, between the two stone walls. And it's the old farm road that used to come out to the back here. We did change the wetland in this location. That's that runoff that comes off the field, comes through the site, and we widened this up at the entrance of where it goes on to the abutting property. So we tweaked it just a little bit to make it more accurate. And then I performed test pits right on the stone wall, right at the edge of fill. This is called test pit number 3. Did one right down through where there's a drain that comes down and enters right here, as close to the drain as I could to make sure there was no hydric soils in that location, and I was just trying to drain it. And another one right here is test pit number 5. It's just below the stone storage bins. It's right on the edge of the fill slope. And the reason I did that was because there's a flagged wetland on the adjacent property, and I figured if there was a drainage that went through the property, that it was a likely situation that it was feeding this wetland on this property. In all 5 or 4 of the test pits that I did and the transect, I could find no hydric soil indicators. And I got pictures in there to evidence what my findings were. That drain that you saw spewing water out when we were at the site visit was dry. I also augured right at the end of that drain. And even with the additions of the water in the spring, that was not hydric soil in that location. But it was further, 10 feet further, and that's this little pocket right here. So were there more wetlands? Yes. I flagged more wetlands along the southern property line of the property. I could not find any evidence of wetlands in this location, and I did not find evidence of wetlands along the property line. Now, I also did some digging, and in 1990, when the abutting property, this property here was subdivided. There's also a soil scientist that worked on that property, and they produced a soil map for that subdivision. And his name was Jamie Long. He works for New Hampshire Soil Consultants. I think some of you may know him. Very reputable person. The area that we dug the trench in is right here. And as you can see, there's a concave drainage pattern in that location. Jamie, at that time in 1990, mapped this area as 423 BH. And that's a his standard. 4 is a somewhat poorly drained soil. It's not a poorly drained. In the area we had flagged, he's got a group 5 soil, 523 CH coming down out of there. So that makes sense. So that just gives me a better feeling that this area maybe did have some water moving through it, yes. Probably in the springtime, because there is a wet pocket over here in the field, and there was a culvert put under the road when the road was put in. There was no permit for the road when it was put in, so I'm hoping it's not a wetland. I researched DES records, I cannot find a permit for this location. So if they want to say it was wetlands in this location, show me the permit. Otherwise, it's a group 4 soil, and we'll have to go with what it says on the plans, and that's draining down through this area, and that's the best evidence that I can find.
Can you tell us when this was initially filled? Do you know
No,
when
I
the gravel area was created?
I can't.
2003 to 2004.
I did my work in 2008.
Okay, 2000, so this large gravel area was put in about 2003, 2004.
And probably a little bit more, like 2005 maybe.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah, I mean, it wasn't like.
not decades,
Yeah, no.
maybe
Oh, I
two.
looked at 2003 aerial photos, and it shows up.
It shows up on 2003 aerial
Yes,
photos.
yes. Yeah, we looked at a lot of aerial photos, and we just cannot find any conclusive evidence. You can see this drainage coming down through here very well. I cannot find any evidence. I looked at the soil aerial photos, the Bing.com aerial photos, NAID, natural, it stands for something. I looked at them all, and I cannot find any evidence of it. This plan was done in 1990, so that was 10,
Okay, so
13
then-
years
yes.
prior to the fill, so.
Okay. Okay.
And this is in your packet. I'm sorry for the cutting off the edge here, but that's how I received the plan, so I couldn't do anything about it.
Okay, questions from the board? Comments?
I believe the statement was made that, so this has been done, but then DES is also going out to look at it, so it's.
Yes, apparently DES has been requested to become involved with it. And I wrote down here, there will be a DES site walk June 2nd. I would hesitate to make much motion at this point without hearing what DES has to say. That's my personal opinion, but I'm not trying to lead us anywhere, so.
I did forward them a copy of all the correspondence.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, procedurally, I'm not really sure what we want to address. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Because we also have a piece of correspondence from, Rick Vanderpool. You guys should all have this letter in your packet from, who was brought into the situation, due to a request of an abutter. And there are comments made from Mr. Vanderpool, to suggest the contrary. And if you notice in the second, an identification of visible wetlands, estimate of pre-existing wetlands prior to the placement of fill. So, Nick?
Is this report referring to the same location on the lot as the report we just heard?
Yes.
I believe these are on,
'Cause this wasn't done on his property, this was done.
right, these were done on Mr., sorry, Brian, Mr. Gibson, thank you. These were done on the abutter's property, right? Brian, I'm sorry, go ahead, do you wanna answer that question?
Yes, the test pits were done immediately above the salt shed, that, and his conclusion completely conflicts with the statements that are made here tonight.
But they're not, they're on your property, right?
They're on John McAvoy's property and my property, right,
Right. Oh, McLary property.
right, above the
So,
salt shed.
those are the property above, if you're looking at the map, above the existing salt shed?
Right.
And then there are test
Where
pits
the water-
below.
where the water flows out of the culvert down through there, above the salt shed is where he did it, where it says there's a small, pocket swamp in the field. That's immediately above the salt shed, and where all the little, conifers are dying, because they're in wet.
Okay, so, we, have conflicting opinions presented before us tonight. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure where we go with that. Hang on. Kyle, you had a comment?
Well, this is not unusual, to have conflicting reports from
Yes.
different wetland scientists. I think the fact that DES has been engaged, I know there's some terrific people up there with some of the finest minds in the state. That we ought to defer to them, to let them do what they do, and that is to compare and contrast the different reports and arrive at a conclusion, and make sure that they know we want to be engaged in the findings as they come out. I mean, we can't do that, I don't think we have the time nor the expertise that DES does.
Yes.
So I think they need to take the lead on this. But I think certainly we ought to correspond with DES and say, you know, this is an important issue to us. We want to know what your findings are. Please keep us engaged of any decisions or documents that are exchanged. And I think we ought to be copied on any documents from either party that go forward to the DES so that, you know, we're engaged in the process.
I make a motion to that effect.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else have a discussion? There's a motion on the table?
Just going to comment that there may or may not be conflict, because, I mean, I look at some of the details of it, and we're looking at what was observed just off the site and what was observed on the site. We heard statements about how there had been a rise there before, and flowage over the land, but not necessarily a perennial flowage, and not necessarily so don't, I think it really all comes down to the site inspection. The site inspection and actually being there and physically looking at it is what really matters, so I think that just strengthens the statement that we really need to defer to what DES has to say after their inspection.
We also haven't really had a time to digest this. I mean, the memo from Vanderpool was only the 21st.
Right.
It's the first time I've really had a chance to sit down and read it, and trying to compare it to the other one will take time.
Right. Okay. Motion on the table. Anyone want a second?
There's a few comments that should go on record, I'd like to make them.
Okay.
My name's Jim Dawson.
Oh, wait. We need to finish the motion on the table. We'll let the public speak. Is there a second? Or are we gonna let this go?
I second it. I mean, I agree with everything that's been said, so I second that.
Okay. Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor of, we're recommending that we draft amendment to DES, saying that we'd like to be involved and included, and at this point, we're gonna let planning board know that we are gonna hold off on our comments on this plan until we hear more from the DES specialists. Okay, that's what we're voting on. All
Yes.
those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. So I know there are members of the public here that would like to speak, and we're certainly happy to allow you to do so. Let's just all do it in a nice, orderly, happy fashion. Go ahead, sir, state your name for the record.
My name is Jim Dawson. I'm now in a butter to the south. There's a few things that should be mentioned. It isn't just a simple moving of earth from the north side to the bottom.
The septic system's been moved and relocated without a permit. There's been a salt shed stored and salt stored on the property with not a hard surface floor. During the winter, snow never stays there, it's always dumped up on the outside because when he loads his trucks. There's potential current and future water contamination. Below that property, there is wetlands with reeds 12 months of the year. That's where it flows. No one will dispute that, I guarantee it. Additionally, when the building was torn apart across the street, the building materials, or at least part of them, were buried underneath that landfill, along with a local contractor septic truck dumped stuff there as well. All that has been mentioned here on record. When I was present on that site tour with you, we'll walk around it, we flushed the duct. So whether you call it dry now, or some of the driest months we've had in recent history, or was there, a duck was nesting. That's just one thing. If you look a little further down the property, Mr. Fournier has a bucket in one of his field loaders he hasn't been able to get to for several years because it's so wet he couldn't take that heavy machinery across the field.
Okay.
So what you're seeing on paper and real life, no one wanted to walk down the bottom, it was soaking wet down there. Are there vernal pools buried underneath that fill? You don't know. The difference is, he was notified in 2004 to stop by the town. It took 4 years to get a site visit by the code enforcement. At this point, not only is he liable, but the town's liable for any present and future damage.
I wasn't aware of the,
That's not an appropriate statement.
okay, I'm not aware, and I haven't seen any correspondence regarding the,
I believe there's a 2004
there was a cease
letter.
and desist.
Can I bring it forward?
Sure, let's submit that for the record. I mean, that, technically, we're getting outside of the purview of the Concom, we're running into planning,
I
but,
just want it on record.
okay, sure? Okay, we have this submitted for the record. This was in 2005. Okay. And it basically was to, well, from the town of Goffstown, okay, to Mr. Fournier. And it was a notice saying that the landscaping business is being run and it needed to be brought up to code or brought to within our ordinances. Okay.
Could you read the last paragraph to us aloud, please?
Please?
Could you read the last paragraph to us aloud, please?
Who's speaking?
Yeah, I need your name for the record.
John McLaren on the letter.
Sure, sure. So this is the letter from, the code enforcement officer in 2005 to Mr. Fournier. It says, to bring the property into conformance with the zoning ordinance, you must submit an application for a site plan review with the planning board, remove the sign advertising for the landscaping business. Once planning grants you site approval, you may submit an application for a sign permit. So, if you choose to ignore this letter, you'll take proper legal action to enforce the provisions of the zoning ordinance. So, they were notified in 2005 that,
5 years have passed.
so they were outside of that. Yes. Okay, thank you for submitting that. Would you like to?
If I could please respond, my name is Kevin Bob, I'm Mr. Fournier's attorney. I won't get into everything because I think a number of you were at the sidewalk and can interpret what we saw there yourselves. But I did want to just clarify that Mr. Fournier did receive a notice from the town. That's what started this. He sought and received a variance to operate the landscaping business. He's not expanding beyond that. He's just meeting the conditions of that variance, which is to get site plan approval.
He received a variance from this in 2005?
The variance was in 2008, I believe.
Okay, all right. Well, we're really quibbling into planning board issues, but anyway.
I just want to clarify what the scope is here. What
Okay.
Mr. Fournier is seeking is site plan approval, which is one of the conditions of the variance.
Okay.
And then finally, one of the other conditions of that variance, to just clarify, is a floor on the salt shed. So
Okay.
that would be addressed as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Gibson?
Technically, he is looking for an expansion of the site, he's looking for a 40 by 60 building, 35 feet high. If anybody knows what 35 feet high is, the new high school store is 37.8. He's looking for 35 feet high in an agricultural zone. That is an expansion. And I don't know how accurate test pits can be when you scrape 3 feet off the top before you get going. And when you look at your salt testing results, there's a color photo in there. which shows a pile that he scraped off that property and left there for a year and a half for Mr. McElroy to look at. That's all what got scraped off that lot. So how accurate can a test pits be when the top 3 feet's already been removed? The banking behind the salt shed is easily over a 3-foot cut. So how accurate can test pits be when you've already scraped the lot?
Thank you.
I guess I have a question for Mr. Duval. The allegation was made both at the site inspection, and then I heard it reiterated again tonight that the septic system has been moved. Is that accurate or not?
You would have to ask Mr. Fournier on that.
When was it moved?
I would say 2007, 2008.
Do you have construction approval and operational approval from the state for that relocation?
It's being taken care of right now.
What's being taken care of?
I'm having it brought up to the code. There was none.
So septic system was moved without the approval, without the appropriate permits at that time?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
no? All right, Mr. Gibson?
Does anybody find the test results from the salt testing of the stream downhill from his property to be alarming? The acute number of toxic to aquatic life is 230, and it tested 420. It tested 420 with no salt in his shed.
We have we've only recently received this information, and we're still, as Carlos mentioned, digesting it. These are definitely issues, though, that, are more under the purview of DES, definitely, because that is definitely something that they would look into. So at this point, I think what we're going to do is we're going to, we're gonna notice the planning board that we're holding off on our comments and our recommendations or referrals on this plan until we receive more information from DES. So, anyone else on the commission have anything else to say? Anyone else from the public have a chance to speak?
So would you move this to your next available meeting? Because we keep postponing the planning board portion until we get this one done. So if they're, again, I don't know how long DES would take if they meet on it. When would your next available meeting be?
Fourth Wednesday of June, which I believe I saw earlier, maybe June 23rd, is that right? June 23rd.
You can pencil us in for that, assuming we can
Sure.
get through DES comments one way or another.
Sure, and that would be the opportunity, the first opportunity really for the full commission to discuss what we received back from DES. So, that would.
So, just let me get it straight, so at that June 23rd, you would be discussing it, you probably wouldn't be making a decision at that point, yes, no, maybe?
I don't know. Carlos?
Let's not forget that what we're dealing with here is an unpermitted use, clearly. I mean, that's undisputed. So really what we're talking about is an after-the-fact site plan approval
Right.
for activities that have already occurred. I mean, it's only prudent to take time and make sure we understand what the existing site conditions are before the planning board goes forward with a planning decision.
Exactly.
I mean, that needs to occur, and whether that takes 2 months, or 3 months, or 6 months, that's what's gonna have to happen, in my opinion. That's the way to approach this.
And I think that's, excuse me, I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm just trying to find, obviously I can't make a June planning board approval, so I'm gonna have to move them back into, I'll start with July, and then if we're not satisfied, if you can't give us a satisfactory, everything's gonna get moved back appropriately. I don't know how long.
We understand the urgency of the issue here, and
Oh, yeah.
where we wanna be cooperative, and we'll make that clear to DES, that, there is some urgency to this situation, and try and move them along with their
Yeah.
evaluation
No, I
and
appreciate
recommendations.
And then I'll just have to deal with planning board to see how many times we can keep postponing it until they're gonna request another notification.
Yes, well, planning typically works with us, so on that,
Yeah, I
so. Mr. Gibson?
Another one of the issues here is if we were starting from a clean palette here, nothing had been put on the site, you know, would Conservation Commission ever agree to 16-foot fills to the property line?
Well-
10-foot fills to the property line?
Well, unfortunately, we're not dealing with a clean
Well,
slate,
I know
so.
that, but we have to look at it like he's bringing it here and that it doesn't exist, and this is what he wants to do. He wants to put 16 feet of fill on my property line. He wants to put 10 feet of fill on the other end of my property line and 18 feet around the corner.
I was on the sidewalk,
We
and,
have to look at this as if he's bringing this here, it doesn't exist, and would we approve this? I mean, I hear you guys talking about cuts and fills for roads and subdivisions all the time, and 16 feet, you guys just don't, you don't even like to see that. But yet, you know, so we have to look at this from that point. Let's pretend like nothing exists there and say, you know, Conservation Commission, would you approve 16-foot fill to an abutting property?
Yes.
To accommodate a construction site for a landscape company?
Yes.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you would.
we understand that. We understand that that is the way that we are reviewing this. Yes, this is an after-the-fact permit, and we do have to assess what was out there before, and we have to have a very clear assessment of it, and we all have to agree on what's out there before, to the best of our abilities. And then we have to decide how we're gonna move forward with that.
And to the best of my knowledge, that septic moved closer to 2005, because it was in the way of his drive to get out back.
Okay, anyone else have any other comments?
Kimberly, can I just, is this
Yes.
salt in figure 1 on the ground by the trench? Figure 1 and figure 2? I was just trying to figure out if that's what that was on the ground.
Why don't we bring everyone on the board a glass of water from below it if they wanna drink it?
Which one are we looking at, Jean?
Figure 1 and figure 2 on that page.
Figure one and figure two?
Yeah,
That large pile, you're asking if
all
that's
the, all
salt?
the white
Well,
stuff.
no,
All the white stuff?
Yeah,
The ground
And
is
the
all
ground.
very white. Is that limestone? Is that salt? What is that? Gravel?
Stone dust.
is it stone dust? Okay. Only because it said it was near the salt shed, like, 'cause,
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the future?
Okay, so we're automatically moved to at least the 23rd, so.
Yes, we will be seeing you next month.
So we don't have to notify abutters again?
I don't think the town will notify the abutters, no,
That's
so.
I
you-
mean, you just have to make the official announcement that it's.
That's a planning board decision.
Yes, right, it'll be on our agenda, so that'll be a public notice at that time.
Not next month,
no.
23rd, July.
June.
I thought the discussion just said it would be July because we weren't
Oh,
certain.
planning will be
And
July,
plan-
right,
planning.
you'll be meeting with us in June.
Yes, that's what I was saying, so
Okay.
that's
If.
the official announcement.
If
DES.
we get the
If we've got
Well,
something.
yes, at that time, we'll review what we've received from DES.
Right. And like I say, if I see that we haven't got it from DES, I'll contact you and we'll keep over that report.
Sure.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was confused there.
Sorry. All right. Oh, this, here, Dirk, this is the copy they gave us for the official record, so let's make sure I don't
Okay, I
recycle
will.
that. Thank you. Okay.
I think all landscaping businesses in the town of Goffstown ought to be revisited.
Well,
Because they've rather grown like topsy.
all right, okay. Okay, so Eric Mitchell's, the discussion of Blackbriar has been moved to, probably next month. So let's move forward into finance. Ms. Finance Officer.
Really, as far as our current balance goes, the only change has been interest of $8.96, which brings our balance to $218,021.05. As you can see, our adopted budget now for operating is $3,497. But it has the balance of $3,175.78. And that's a difference of $321.22. And I have our agenda and notes I took from the last meeting, and I'm not quite sure what that cost was from.
What is it?
The difference is $321.22, so I'm not sure what expenditures were from that. I do have our minutes and our agenda from last month, and I don't have personally any recollection what we spent. $321.22, so I just I don't know if anyone has any else clarification on that, I don't have any notes or,
Nothing in the minutes
did
about
we
that
get-
expenditure.
No, we didn't
No.
approve anything.
Did anybody attend workshops? We
No,
voted-
actually, we talked about it and we didn't.
Right.
Okay.
so that was an expense that I'm not quite sure what we,
The 3/21/22 is the year-to-date expenditures.
Okay.
I've got a copy of the budget and I can pass it along, which was as of April 30th. The 3/21/22 is the year-to-date expenditures.
Okay, so that's our difference between the two numbers. So that's the total of what we spent over the year, we just hadn't been seeing that before? It all came to us suddenly in one pulse?
That I don't know, cause if you
Right.
also see, there should be next to it an expenditures this
Right.
period for the past month, and I think that says $110 and
92 cents.
Okay, well, that seems to make sense here, cause it says the budget adopted 3497 balance. And there would be payments for minutes and taking
and that's probably what it is, the
Payments for what?
Secretary.
secretarial costs and all that.
yeah, when Gail transcribes the minutes.
Right, and that's fine, I just, I see it.
And I can have Patty follow up on that to just explain, what those payments were.
And that makes sense, I
Yeah.
just didn't have a reason what it was for, and that truly makes sense.
Let's
Yeah,
remember
well, we
too,
should
that
see the details.
yeah,
So,
Gail isn't just a recording secretary, she's also secretary who writes up memos for us too, so,
she's awesome.
so that's why that
Yeah.
might be a little more higher than we might think, but, okay, yes.
Okay.
All right, good,
And that was all I have to say.
excellent, thank you. Okay, open space committee update?
There's no update, we didn't meet.
Okay, all right, good. All right, moving on, we got the minutes of April 28th. I had already submitted my comments to Patty and Catherine, so they, so I looked it over and I think it's fine.
Yep.
Anybody else look it over?
I did, and I agree.
Okay. Anybody wanna go ahead and make a motion on that one?
You want the minutes and the sidewalk, wanna do both?
Sure, I actually did that one too, sure.
I move to accept the minutes of the April 28th meeting and the April 17th site walk that we did on the Fournier property. Is that what that was the?
Sure.
Um,
Did anyone else read them? Okay. Anyone else have a second or any comments? I can't second, can I? Okay, Jean, okay, Jean seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approving the minutes, anyone abstain?
I wasn't here.
Okay,
Wasn't here.
Susan, David, and, sorry, brain damage, Karen abstains, thank you. All right, moving on, I don't see the timber cut permits in front of me, do I have the copy or do you?
I have copies right here if they weren't distributed.
Okay,
I can pass
we have
those
two
down.
timber cut permits for our review, remember, we just asked to review these as they come forward, typically we don't have much comment on them, but we have, on Miles Avenue and Bog Road, I didn't get a chance to review how big they are. The one on Miles Avenue is cordwood, 80,000 MBF, pine, it says storm damage, actually it says strom damage, but it's probably storm damage, and it's cordwood, and that's, on Miles. Miles is, oh, right there, behind you, okay. All right, look at that. Kim's neighborhood too. And then, the one, what is this one?
That is the
Bog
Bog Road.
This is just tree chips, whole tree chips, 75 tons. Okay, on Bog Road. Anybody wants to see them or have any comments on them? Nope, okay, moving forward, those look good.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Regarding storm damage, why, if there's storm damage, does a intent to cut have to be
Yes.
filed?
David?
To
That is a good
remove,
question.
to remove storm damaged trees from property?
Well, I'm guessing because some of the damaged trees are probably still standing, like the tops have been knocked out and the branches have been knocked off, so they still need to remove the tree and take the tree down, as opposed to a tree blowing over and laying on the ground. I'm
Well,
guessing.
Okay, but I mean, that, I understand that, but to leave the storm damaged tree there to rot doesn't make sense. I mean,
I agree.
but I don't know why there has to be an intent to cut in order to clean up the property and make it, whole, let's say, after the storm.
And I think from the assessor's point of view, they are treated differently. They're not assessed at a full, if they were to go in, it's at a salvage rate, it's at a reduced rate for tax purposes. Because again, that's what an intent to cut is for, is.
I know, to collect taxes, but I think that to charge a property owner tax to clean up property is wrong, because they could just leave it and have it be a fire hazard and everything else, and a health hazard, and I think taxing people to maintain property after storm like we had is wrong, and I think that I really think it's wrong.
Okay, but that's a state issue.
That's a DRA issue.
That's a
Department of
state
Revenue
issue, not a
Yep.
town issue. You should run for state rep and do something.
Actually, no, it's a town issue, because the town controls that. The town controls that. The selectmen, can do it. It's not the assessor, it's the selectmen that can, who are the taxing authority,
They're
of the town
taxing
for that.
authority, but aren't there rules and regulations that apply to it from the state level? Timber tax regulations?
Yes, there are, but it's how this town is applying storm damage rules. Because when the horrible ice storm was up north and you had a lot of, sugar maples come down, and people took care of that damage, there was no town penalty to clean up the property. And I think the timber tax on storm damage is a penalty.
I can pass your concerns along to the assessor. May have a talk with the Board of Selectmen, see if they wanna change, but I can pass it along to, Scott.
But aren't they still making money off of it? I mean, 800,000 board feet, that's gotta be a little chunk of change in your pocket, isn't it? I don't know much about forestry.
Well, right, it's all administered by DRA at the state level.
Right.
I mean, the law is the law.
No.
It's,
But you're not cutting it because you want to, you're cutting it because you have to.
Well, this goes back to,
No,
I had someone very, Barbara hammered us on the Anna King property. I mean, and I still disagree. I don't think there is certainly an ecological value to downed trees. Now, fire hazard or whatever, or it's gonna fall on one person that might walk by it and, whatever. 3 people in the state died because of tree storm damage. Well, that's a whole big state, and it's kinda crazy. But personally, I think if a tree falls down, you wanna get your board feet out of it, that's money in your pocket. I don't think that there's any need to salvage these trees. So I question, I'm on the opposite side of that, Karen. I'm not sure that there's any need to, you wanna clean up your tree, get money out of it for your board feet or your chips or whatever. I wouldn't be any great hurry to say you get a tax relaxation on it.
well, you need,
Maybe I feel differently because I don't have a huge parcel of land that has trees that fall over, but that's just my thought on it. I don't see it.
you need to file an intent to cut. And
Right.
if you're harvesting only for your own personal use, you don't have to pay a tax on that.
Mhm.
It's when you're selling the timber or the
Exactly.
chips or whatever, regardless of whether it's storm damage or whatever, it's based upon, are you deriving revenue from it? If
Exactly.
you are, then you have to pay the tax. I mean, that's the way the legislation is set up.
It's a sales tax.
It's, yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's look at the correspondence. We have, I had the copy of the water testing from Dean Gibson. I passed that over to Collis. If anybody else wants to review it, I told Derek I didn't think we all needed copies of it. I think, I don't know, do you wanna, or, I didn't see it in my group. I think I handed it to you, didn't I, Collis?
I've got a couple of
They
copies,
are,
yeah.
quite, high for salinity, which you may or may not expect from a salt, runoff from a salt shed, so, I think that might be more applicable to the planning purposes, but, definitely part of our file for that project.
Just a quick question, are there any controls on who does the test, how it's, in other words, and I'm not talking about this one in particular, but if I went out and took water from where, it's kind of my words, the water came from what are the controls when you receive results like this to determine that, yes, in fact, these are where they said they were sampled and?
Very strict controls, Nick, very, very strict controls. There's protocols that are in place that talk about how you sample, how you preserve the sample, how you transport the sample, who does the testing, is the laboratory certified by the state? I mean, it's very, very detailed and very, very explicit as to how this all occurs. And I think what he's done is presented the results from a certified testing company, and presumably they followed the proper protocols. And that's where these results are, but again, presumably. I don't know who took the sample, you know, if it was taken properly. I guess we could find that out by asking the company.
It does bring into play, especially, for example, earlier this evening when we had wetland scientists versus wetland scientists, and there are certification processes and how we go about making sure that the information we receive from the scientists is valid and correct. But also, there is we have an ability to recommend to planning, and has been done on larger sites in the past, to have a third-party review of wetland scientists versus wetland scientists so that the town can have a clear idea of what happens. And that could be something that we recommend after we get from the information from DES. We may say, we need a third-party independent person to look at these and give the town their opinion, and they're not invested in the better, and they're not invested in the Fourniers. And we have in the past, and we've asked the applicant to pay for that, and that's within our regulations, I believe. And that may be something that we might want to think about as we move forward. And I'm just not saying that we would, but that's definitely something. So, I know that the town has had third-party engineer review in the past too, so, Derek's looking that up now.
Well,
so.
I'm positive that the planning board and the zoning board can require an applicant
Right.
I'm not positive on conservation. What you might have to do is recommend to the
Ask,
planning
yes.
board that
Correct.
they do that.
Right.
Because you're not a land use board, you fall under a different statute.
Right, it would be something that we'd have to ask.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, but the planning board could require that of the applicant
Yes.
to pay for a third party.
Right, anything we do is a recommendation to the planning board. We don't have any statutory
Yeah,
authority.
we use our terms a little loosely sometimes,
Okay.
but we do
We
understand
invent
that
our
part.
powers, so.
We don't have any.
Okay, Town and City Supply Line Source Newsletter. Letter from Jackie Gagnon, it was a nice, eloquent, and very detailed letter that we will include in our discussion when we eventually get to Blackbriar. That was a letter from the abutter. Letter from DES regarding Wetland Bureau complaint. Ooh, do I have that letter? Do you have that one?
I do have a copy of it.
Okay. Can we just hear the gist of it?
Basically a complaint of possible violations on property has been received. If there's a violation, DES will take enforcement action. You're on our scheduled inspection list. Please respond within 20 days.
Okay. Okay, so DES is aware of what's going on the Fourniers. Letter from Ecosystem Management Consultants regarding pending site plan.
That is the wetland scientist, the Vanderpool
Oh, thank
okay.
you. Gotcha.
letter.
All right, letter from Shower Environmental regarding environmental studies. All right, we already looked at that. Memo from SNPHPC. God bless Jason, you all. I dropped the ball with him. Okay, Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission is having a public forum to discuss this land conservation plan. It was my understanding that they were going to bring this land conservation plan back to us for us to review it again. And Jason sent me an email last week saying, by the way, the deadline for our comments is June 10th. Am I on the agenda? I missed it because I went out of town, and then realized tonight he sent an email to you and then to me, and I said, I don't really know what's going on with it, but apparently they are going to close the public comment on this land plan on June 10th. And I was at the understanding that they were gonna bring it back to us, and they didn't. And
There's actually a good trail of correspondence and emails on this whole matter.
yes,
And Jason repeatedly made it very clear to Southern New Hampshire Planning that our meeting is tonight.
Right.
That this would be the only meeting before that deadline, that nothing had been received by us.
Right, I have no maps, we have nothing to
We've
review or discuss.
received no maps, we haven't received so much as a URI pointing us to a website with the maps, we've received absolutely nothing to comment on. So,
And I
you
do-
have not dropped the ball, the
Okay.
town has not dropped the ball, but somebody dropped the ball.
Yeah,
Different
we
when you-
received these on Monday, but there are some maps included, as well as the agenda for the public forum, and then
Oh, okay.
the memorandum from David Priest.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's enough information for you to,
Well, it's hard for us to discuss these as we discovered the first time we tried to discuss these. And, you know, Jason is doing an awesome job of pointing out to them the deficiencies he thinks that we're seeing as far as our town goes. And I know he actually had a meeting with them and identified some wildlife habitat areas they didn't have on the map. And, you know, I just,
Well, for the record, some of the things that he pointed out specifically, and which have been pointed out a number of times. First of all, there's several things that go into this. There's the Wildlife Action Plan is one of the higher ranked components of it. The Wildlife Action Plan really hasn't been, there really isn't data put into that from Goffstown. There haven't been people here doing extensive work on that. So it's really a pretty meaningless input. If you don't actually have the data from that area, then the results you get from that area obviously are of no value. Another big contributing factor, and I'm talking about the things that ultimately end up in this natural resource co-occurrence. Another important factor is the amount of unfragmented land, and they have areas that they cut off. For example, 500 acres is considered a very important one. Well, when you looked at the maps for that, that was clearly deficient in Goffstown. For one thing, they're including, you know, some of the Class 6 roads. A good example is Kennedy Hill Road, which if you actually go out and walk that from Mass Road up the hill, we're talking about places where all you're doing is walking on ledge where you can barely make out there was ever a road there. To suggest that this is fragmenting wildlife habitat is absurd. But they take the town maps, they take those Class 6 roads, that gets included into it. And so now you've fragmented all that county land versus the Roberts Farm, which in and of itself is 470 acres, and other area around there. You've got a very large piece of area right there, which is vastly in excess of 500 acres, but doesn't show up in the maps as such because they don't take the time to do it carefully, to do it properly. And that's just one example, but there are also other examples up in the northeastern corner and so on. These have been pointed out, they nod their heads, but they don't do anything differently. So you have another layer going into this plan, which is irrelevant and not quite correct. Jason has pointed out specific occurrences. For example, Atlantic white cedar swamps, the rarest forest habitat in the state. There is less than 500 acres in the entire state of New Hampshire of this habitat type. We have 3 Atlantic white cedar swamps in Goffstown. They're not on the map, they're not included. And it goes on and on. So you take incomplete layers, you put them all together and blend them in a map, and what do you get? There's no value in this. That's going to be my comment, it's gonna continue to be my comment. You take garbage in, you get garbage out. What is the point of this?
well, and I guess we have to make steps to see if this turns into a public planning tool that will just go receive all these blessings and have future use, when we believe it to be so incorrect, we need to do something about it, because that's been our fear all along, is that this is going to move forward and become something that people will rely on.
I don't know who would be relying on it, because I can't see us relying on it within the town.
Right.
You know, if they're talking about some sort of regional plan, but what that even means has never really been defined, and how that will be used. But from looking at this in terms of Goffstown's own conservation plan, and the criteria that we look at, it's of no value to us, that I can see. But anyway, he has raised those points over
Yes.
and over and over, so.
Thank you, Derek. And Jason has done an excellent job, you know, going to bat for us, talking to them, meeting with them, trying to get them to see the inaccuracies and clear them up and, you know, trying an attempt to make this, to correct this.
Who are our representatives on the Southern New Hampshire Planning Board?
I believe it's Barbara and,
Joanne, I believe.
oh, Joanne Duffy.
Could we possibly send letters to them expressing our frustration with the process and just let it go at that, but at least somebody will be on record, that we're not happy?
Yeah, I would agree with Karen, something needs to be put in writing, so we are on record.
I can draft it, David, you, or I can pass it over to David. Or I can draft it.
I can make a draft, but then send it out for everyone else to look at, 'cause.
Okay.
Because with Jason's input, and we came back in at the beginning of the process, and then Jason's input, and as David is saying, garbage in and garbage out, we're still dealing with that. Somebody should know that
We're not happy.
we're not happy.
Yeah, and that's why everyone should review anything that I put in writing, because I obviously have very strong opinions on this, and you don't want to just tell me to go off and write it. You want to review what I have to say about it.
Alright,
May I make the suggestion as in addition to send it to the reps, they are still asking for public comment, so
yes,
I would also send it directly to, you
to
know,
the planning board.
to
Southern New Hampshire
Southern New Hampshire
Planning
Planning as a
Right.
response to that memorandum, but also copy your reps, so.
Okay, yes, that's a good idea. Okay, so we will look forward to that, and thank you, David, for volunteering.
Sort of volunteer.
Actually, I would send it to our representatives and copy the planning.
The Southern New Hampshire Planning.
I would just, yeah, I'd just make sure it gets to both.
Yes, but I would copy the reps first, and then
Okay,
I would write to the reps and copy the planning.
and what is that, June 15th, what is that? Anybody know what day of the week that is?
June 15th is a Tuesday night.
I can't go. I can't go. I might be out of town, I don't know where I'm doing. Okay, all right. If I'm around, I'll think about going. Okay, and there's an all boards meeting, oh, see, you're gonna go to that meeting. There's an all boards meeting, June 14th, at the high school. Who attended that last time? I didn't. Did you? Who attended that?
I've been to one.
You? And
How many have there
Evelyn?
been? I've been to one. I may have gone with Evelyn. I've been to one. It's very good.
Yeah. Okay. I will be attending, and if Evelyn is not attending, Kim's gonna volunteer to attend with me. And, it is good for all the boards to communicate and get together, and it's a good idea, and I'm glad that they're doing this.
When is that again?
June 14th.
June 14th. It's a really good meeting to attend.
They invited the chairman and the vice chairman,
And I would just
or their
say that
designees.
Sue DeRusso's looking for any ideas of discussion as well.
Okay.
So if the commission has any,
Yes.
ideas that they wanna pass along, she would want those by June 4th,
Okay.
so she can.
Yeah, if anybody has anything they want discussed, that would be good. 'Cause I don't, yeah. Okay, other business, let's see. Durango, I sent Derek a note about asking about the history of Durango Drive, for those of you that don't remember this. It sounds so funny because that's the street in Ohio that I grew up on, so it's so funny to say Durango, and I instantly think, what, the Loveland instead of here. But, there were two issues. One was that, they cut some trees in the wetland when they logged this property way long time ago. And, there was a question, actually, Mr. Fournier's father, uncle, brother, somebody who owns the Fournier business on Catamount, asked about it at the site walk, hey, did they ever do anything about that? And Collis was the one who actually followed up on, yes, they had a fine that they paid, that's correct? And they had to replant some trees, and were those trees replanted?
As far as we can tell.
As far as we can tell, okay, those trees were replanted. And then the second question was, there's an empty lot that the builder has cleared, and I wanted to make sure that there is a 100-foot buffer. That was one of the first buffers we really fought for in this town, and I wanted to make sure that the lot, developer had not cut into it. And Derek sent me correspondence with a map here that shows that it looks like he has stayed out of that buffer, although my question was, from your notes, Derek, it appeared that they had to put granite bounds, and I don't see those granite bounds in place.
And I wasn't able to find them either.
Okay, so,
And there
Bounds
w-
for the conservation district?
it surprised me that that was there, because that's way back when we first started some of this.
Yeah, there were granite bounds to be set shown on the subdivision plan
Oh,
where the Catamount buffer intersected the lot line.
oh, intersected the lot lines, oh,
So
interesting.
not all the way along the buffer, but
Right.
where it intersected the lot
Those are
line.
granite bounds on the back of these properties there?
I couldn't find any. I went in a general direction, and there was some surveyor's tape to indicate the lot line, and I measured out 100 feet from what I believed was the edge, and couldn't find it there, so.
So maybe we need to follow up on making sure that those get installed, if that was a permit condition. Yeah, nowadays we would ask them to tree tag or something, but, so, we worked really hard on that, and so it's good to know that we're keeping an eye on it. So, okay, so thank you for responding to that, Derek. Let's see, what else? I think that was all that, oh, and at that time, is it on here too? Then something right after that, Derek, I asked you about the trash dump site, we were gonna get an update on that, the big one up on the border of Dunbarton?
Yeah, on Tibbetts Hill Road.
Yes, on Tibbetts Hill?
I site walked that on May 8th, the day before Mother's Day.
Okay.
Took quite a few pictures, and I will have a report ready for you for the June
Is this the
meeting.
guy with all the trailers and the construction
Yes.
equipment?
How's it look?
What's his name?
Lepsevich.
Yeah, that's right.
It still needs quite a bit of work. He has quite a few receipts for the scrap metal that's been taken out of there.
Okay.
Almost all the I guess the tanks, or quite a few tanks, as you'll remember from the site walk 2 years ago, have been removed for those. But he's done, all the small engines are gone, all the lawnmowers and everything. And I have pictures over the 3 inspections that I've done
Okay,
that I'll show in the report that I'm finishing up.
okay.
So he's making progress.
He's making progress. It is slow, but he's made quite a bit of,
He's got a lot to deal with.
yeah, he's got quite a bit of progress.
And someone asked me too, so when we get to a point, because for those of you that weren't quite remembering this, it's adjoining or has part of the prime wetland on-site or off-site, but directly, I mean, he had stuff right up within that buffer to the prime wetland. And the question is, once all the obvious things are pulled off, or most of the obvious things, what, will we or do we have the ability to require any type of testing? I mean, what actually went into that prime wetland chemically underground? I don't know what we.
I'd have
this is new
to
for us.
consult with the town attorney to see what we could require, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I don't know.
There were a lot of engines though, or,
Oh,
It's all kinds of stuff.
yeah,
I
so
mean,
there's
was
potential for oil leakage.
Yeah, there
Oh, yeah.
definitely was.
yes, definitely.
I mean,
It's,
you
there's
can't
gotta be
believe how
s-
much stuff he had out there.
I
mean,
would
it
not be
was
surprised there's a
unbelievable.
subsurface plume down there, and actually, and in that respect, I know you've been working with the state too, so I don't know what the state has under their jurisdiction to enforce versus what we have in a jurisdiction to enforce. As far as that goes, I'm not really clear on that, so.
No, I did file a report with them, and I can check on, with what they did with their investigation. I haven't been working with them,
Okay,
on this one as much, so.
okay, great.
Check up on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, Old Home Day. I'm not going to be around at all for Old Home Day, so if anyone is interested in manning a table, I have the table and the canopy, but just, I can't man it. So, I told Robbie I'd ask if anybody's interested.
I'm already involved with Old Home Day.
Yeah, I'll be out of town as well.
Yeah.
And I'm already doing something
Yeah,
else
you're
too
busy.
for that.
So, all right, I'll tell Robbie that we gonna have to pass on this one, so. Okay. Contact list update. I just wanted to check it didn't seem like we'd sent a contact list around recently to Derek, regarding anybody that had any, phone numbers or address changes or email changes. I wanna make sure, I believe everybody's getting all the correspondence now, we had some glitches in the past, but everybody gets all the emails pretty well, so, okay, maybe we don't have to send a list around, maybe we just need to say, if you've had any phone number or address changes, I don't know if anybody that actually moved or anything, so,
What I can do is have, when Patty returns on Friday or the week following,
okay,
ask her to send a contact list out to everyone of what she has.
okay,
And you can send back to her to make any corrections.
great, okay, thank you. Next was CIP requests, we have no CIP request outside of the $80,000 that we always have on the matrix. I should know the date that we are supposed to attend CIP, but I don't, and I will ask Brian to remind me of that. CIP matrix kinda got slipped through the cracks here this time because we didn't have a lot of time to actually discuss it. So the deadline has passed, but I wasn't aware that we had anything that we were going to offer for the CIP matrix. And I think my comment was we might be a pushy board, but we're not very needy, so, I don't think we had any monetary over, what is it, over 50, what is it? The CIP, over $5,000 maybe, anyway.
I'm not sure.
So, and I guess the lesson learned is next spring, we have to remember, I got a reminder and then I got a due date, and they kind of like came very close together, and so, we need to start thinking maybe January, February, if we have CIP issues we wanna request. But the $80,000 for open space is still on CIP and, still up for discussion, so.
Yeah, because what happens is the budget committee pushes up their timeline, which pushes up the Board of Selectmen's timeline and pushes up CIP, so that's
Right.
where you almost put something in the memory files for January, February.
Right, yeah, I completely missed it, so. Okay, we have a minimum expedited, Derek was asking me about this, this is for Lally trustee on Lesnick. I'm not sure, now I understand this. The minimum expedited is to install a culvert and construct a driveway. I was thinking, gosh, we've talked about Lally and Lesnick a lot. It has to cross an intermittent stream, and the minimum expedited is we sign it and then it goes off and we don't have to go through the full. It says, as required by New Hampshire DES, I'm writing to inform you that they're filing a minimum expedited dredge and fill. The subject property, that's the butters list. I have this, the view, I believe this is an approved site plan, right, for this subdivision, this 2-lot subdivision?
They've received conditional approval from the planning board.
Okay, this is the stream.
And I have the plan here, I did not make copies of the large plans.
Okay. This is the stream that they have to cross, put in a culvert. I believe, Megan has worked with them and the culvert is appropriately sized per Megan's, instructions or requirements. Culvert is 24 inches in diameter, 30 inches in length, long. And that's a driveway to access to 2 building areas on the property, so it's a shared driveway?
Yes.
Okay. So we can choose to sign this tonight, or we can choose to refuse to sign it, and then they have to go through a regular permitting process. My recommendation is that we sign it tonight, because they've already been through permitting and quibbled over this culvert quite a bit.
I agree, this thing has been beat to death.
Yeah. And it was my understanding, though, that I'm supposed to have 5 copies to sign? I only have.
They only provided 1 copy, I presumed it was to give it back to them so they could make the necessary amount of copies.
In some cases, we've been given all 5, but I will,
Yeah, they only gave me 1.
okay. So unless anybody has a problem with this one, I'm just
Oh,
gonna
I've
sign
got
it.
the original here, so I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so anybody have any comment on this or any?
But you're right, they're
Nope,
supposed to give us
disagreement?
5 copies.
Yeah, they are. So, tell DES might, if you need me to come back and sign 5 more, or
I'll
4
tell,
more.
Mr. Todd that.
26?
Yes.
Okay. All right, there we go. Go back to there. Okay, it's rolling through. All right, plans. Ugh. All right, we already looked at the one for the 12 by 20 shed. Let's look at map 4, lot 15 and 15-1, Mountain Road lot line adjustments. There we go. I don't think that has anything to do with my company, if anybody wants me to step down from this, but I don't believe so. I don't know the Mr. Norman Doe, so. But for purposes, I work for Norman Doe Associates, but I don't think that has anything to do with the Norman Doe of this plan. So this is.
Not
Anymore. He
Not
was-
anymore,
He was
right.
the original.
Right, he was the original, yes, but no longer, so. All right, so this is, purpose of this plan is to have a lot line adjustment between map 5, lot 24 and 39 as shown. And is this the one that they think of, there might be selling for the town or potential selling or something? Is this the one that was looked at for the town recreation fields?
No.
Ah, thank you.
That was Monty.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I saw Henry Bridge, there's the roundabout, so. Okay, I don't know, we can comment on it or not.
So it's just, there's,
Purpose of this is a lot line adjustment.
the big lot's becoming the smaller and the smaller is becoming the bigger, essentially.
It's hard for me to actually read how it's being shifted.
Jim, I think that's.
Well, the
You're
little
looking at
blow
the-
up.
I think you're looking at the wrong map, Kim.
That's the plan for the Barney property.
I think this is the one
Thank
right
you.
here, that's why, right
Lot
there.
line adjustment. Oh, there we go. Well, that would mean why I would asked about that. Thank you. Okay, sorry, purpose of this plan is to adjust the lot lines between lot 15 and 15-1. Thank you, as shown on map 4. A net transfer of 36 acres from lot 15 to 15-1. No new lots created. Anyone have any comment?
I don't know, they just consolidating?
Yeah, why?
Making one big lot?
Do we know why?
I would assume
Still gonna
somebody's
need
gonna
two
build
lots.
something at some point.
Well, at that time, then we deal with it.
Right.
But right now, who cares?
Right, okay. So, anyone have any issues of concern? Okay,
And this is all conservancy zoning, so this is all 5-acre zoning.
okay, okay. So Derek, you can say we have no issues of concern for this
Okay.
one. All right, sorry. Here we go. Map 5, lots 24 and 39, Town of Goffstown and Barnard, Elm Street lot line adjustments. Okay. Again, lot line adjustment. I guess what I don't get is says parcel A to be consolidated with map 5 lot 39 and not be considered a separate building lot. I don't have any comments or concerns with it. I don't know
Well,
if anyone else does.
I do.
Okay,
This is one of our designated prime wetlands. And I don't see any notes to that effect. I don't see the prime wetland delineation nor the 100-foot buffer to the prime wetland shown on the plan. So, I mean,
okay.
I'm comfortable that the information is incomplete. It's not to say I don't have feelings one way or other on lot line adjustment, but I think there's some additional information that,
Well, what is the purpose of this, to take the parcel that's being purchased and just merge it with the existing town lot?
yeah, so you excavate
So
gravel.
there's just one
They
big
want to
lot,
remove gravel
right?
off it, yeah.
Right, but why are they consolidating? I guess that's a question. Just to clean up the map?
Otherwise,
Guess so.
otherwise that lot would have no access. You'd have to go
There's no access.
Oh,
through,
Oh, yeah.
through the town, the public works lot to this one. So now they're merging it with the public works lot.
So that
That
they can
gives it
access it
access,
through.
gives them
through-
They would still access it through it, but rather than
DPW.
having it as a separate lot.
I just think, this is gonna become a plan of record. It ought to show the designated prime wetland and the 100-foot buffer on it. I mean, that's
Yes.
important information.
Yeah, 'cause they show
The
the
town,
wetland,
even though they don't have to, should
limits of the wetlands.
follow all the rules and regulations for a gravel pit. So there should be pre and post and expectations, because if the gravel is going to last for, how many years were we told? 10, 20 years? People won't be around to know what was decided now, and if it's on the plan, and if it's the file, the manana selectmen and powers that be will know what was intended at the time.
Similar to what the one we just did, I don't believe this is a plan for gravel permitting, or I think this is just a lot line adjustment.
Yes.
But what Hollis is
I
saying,
mean, I
it
think
should
when
be a
that, when
true-
that comes about, the proper plans would be submitted, and all of the regulations would be followed.
You don't have to.
I know,
You're
but
on
the
your
town does,
municipality.
I understand that, we're not required to, but I think we have historically always followed all of the planning regulations, or tried to.
Well, there is some demarcation on here of some limits of flood zone, limits of wetlands. I think it's a very, very reasonable request that this be accurate and up to date. As
And
Colin
not
says, it's a plan of record,
And not
so-
difficult to do either.
Right, they just need to add the lines and notations of that.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Okay, so that's our note,
Mhm.
is that we'd like to see the designation of the prime wetland, the wetland buffer surrounding it. What else? Is that it? Okay. And so with those edits, those are our comments. I mean, I guess we would have nothing else to say about the lot line adjustment other than that. We believe the plans need to be reflected correctly.
Is note number 11 just standard language?
I think so. What I think that's also true, if they're gonna cut the trees, they have to file it with the assessor's office.
And so again, important to see the buffer and all that.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. That one, okay. Where's auto body, really? Okay, map 18, lot 30, site plan amendment to add landscaping business to the auto property on Mast Road. Patain and Shaw.
Isn't that, this is more in the Bernardville area?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Oh, it's down there?
Yeah. Ooh. I'll tell you.
It's the road, Patain Street is directly after, if you're going towards Manchester, it's right after the Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, okay.
Really small.
Oh, going this way.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts is
Top of the
map
sheet.
18, lot 37-1 on this.
The top of the sheet.
Okay, the Dunkin' Donuts, like by, McDonald's.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
In fact, at the top of the sheet, the dotted lines for the driveway, that's the exit from Dunkin' Donuts.
Okay, gotcha,
Ah.
yes. Okay, and so, is this a lot, oh, no, site plan amendment. Okay, are they changing the lot line? Says lot line to be discontinued?
This is what they've asked for is a waiver of engineered site plan. So they've used a 1989 site plan, which was also a lot consolidation,
Oh,
to draw on it. And the portion in color
Okay.
shows the portion of the lot that they're proposing to use for the landscaping business.
And it's an existing,
There's an existing garage there, as well as some auto sales that was approved a couple years ago.
I don't wanna add landscape
And
business.
then there's a vehicle storage area in the rear.
What's the note, this lot is not to be used for commercial purposes, used to remain residential?
That was a note put on at the time of the site plan.
Is it still being used as residential? Map 18, lot 32?
It's vacant, it's connected to the vehicle storage area, but they don't currently have any vehicles stored in that portion of the lot.
Okay.
So, I mean, landscaping business can mean a lot of things. What are we actually referring to here? Is this a retail outlet where people are going to buy shrubs and plants, or is this a landscaping business like the previous
Yeah.
project we looked at? It's two completely different things.
I don't know, yeah, I agree. I don't know what they mean, what they proposing to do here. My biggest concern is, it's an area of town where we have closed drainage, stormwater drainage. In fact, you can see the catch basins and whatnot right adjacent to this property. This discharges fairly directly to Mystic Brook and then the river. So
That's a good point.
what are they planning to do here? I mean, how
Lot
are
of
they gonna contain
fertilizers
stuff?
or
How are
what?
they gonna make sure it doesn't get into the drainage system and then Mystic Brook and the river in fairly short order? That, at least, when I saw that, that was my initial concern.
Do we have a more detailed plan of what they're
They
expecting?
wanna waive it.
No, I know in my experience talking with Mr. Paris, they're looking to store, bark mulch and some other material there. I don't know if that includes salt in the winter. You know, many times with the landscaping business in the winter, they are plowing and salting, but he did not indicate whether or not that would be there. And then the existing garage would be used as just a little office and maybe a little bit of a showroom to show some pictures of the work that the company's done. But
Okay.
other than that, I'm not real clear on what type of equipment will be stored there,
Okay.
what type of materials. I know they did talk about bark mulch and some stone, but they didn't get into talk about storage or how, all those issues.
So will this will have to come before the planning board, obviously, to,
They've submitted an application to go to the planning board, and they've asked that an engineered drawing be waived. So this is the extent of what they've submitted to the planning board at this time.
and that application before the planning board is to discuss the business in its entirety, what will be going on, all the sorts of things we were just wondering about. And if that's the case, given what, the point Collis raised about the drainage, if you don't have the engineered plan, how do you assess that?
You can't.
That seems to be a complete disconnect there.
And to be honest with you, in an urban area like this, I think it's pretty brazen to ask to waive engineering drawings for a commercial operation. That's pretty brazen, in my opinion.
I mean, we'd like to, we'll let you waive your 12 by 12 engineered site plan for the shed, but, this is,
Yeah, this,
it's a
I don't know.
commercial money-making.
what is the business, what are they gonna be doing, where's stuff gonna be stored, how's drainage gonna be handled? You can't do that without an engineered plan.
One of the issues that came up too with the Fourniers is would they go out and mow lawns and bring back grass clippings and dump them somewhere, and that's a huge issue of, nitrates and everything, so,
Nitrates and everything that was applied to the grass.
right.
Right.
So I guess our recommendation would be that we would not recommend waiver of the engineered drawing. And we'd also like to let planning board that we know that we have concerns regarding the drainage and we'd like more specific information about what exactly will be the landscaping business.
Yeah, activities on the site, yeah.
Yes,
Are we gonna, after all, are we gonna see this again, or this would probably be the last time we would see this?
it'll come back on it through site plan review.
Oh, I would, yeah.
Yeah, it's scheduled for June 10th, but based on your comments, I don't know what Brian's comments would be on the proposal.
Okay.
But, I will pass along your concerns not to waive, the engineered drawings and your other concerns.
And that we'd like to review the engineered drawings when they're.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
is, after this, plan was submitted, is there a build-out plan available? Was that ever filed?
No,
I guess we don't have a plan.
All the
this is
big
really
unknown.
this is the limits of the
This is what we
plan
got.
that they submitted.
Unacceptable.
I think that we really need to have a build-out plan after, pre and post.
Right.
Right.
The engineered plan and then a build-out plan after. And I'd make that comment to the planning board that should be required with, whether the bark mulch is gonna be there, the salt shed, whatever. That should all be shown on a build-out plan for the landscaping business.
Right.
I think we should ask for that from all of these site plans too, like Fournier's and any landscaping business should show their build-out plan. Because they're very fluid.
Okay, anyone else have any other issues? Susan?
I have two things. First one is, Rick will have me call the Recreation Department,
Okay.
and they would like to take in hand, some cleanup at the Glen Lake Beach area, trimming the trees, taking, I guess there's, bamboo coming in there
Yep,
now.
there is.
And cleaning up, and he talked about making it, and he'd like somebody to walk with him, and I'll go down there and walk with him if we,
I'd be
to show
very
us,
happy
or
to.
you would like to do it?
Yeah.
You're right there. Okay,
Best-
he'd like somebody to
vested
walk with
interest
him
in
and
this.
talk about what he might do. And
Yeah.
I said I would bring it before the
Yeah, I
meeting.
was just there on Sunday. There are invasive species that are well established themselves.
Right, and they'd like to trim the trees so that perhaps when the police drive by, they'll be able to see the beach area
And I have
from
to
the
tell you,
road.
coming here today,
There's a zoo.
they have the door, the gates seem to be open for the school. They were in the parking lot, in the school, there was.
25 cars maybe?
It was
Selectmen are dealing with
mocked.
this.
Yeah, but anyway, he would like to,
Yeah,
he would like to
very
take
well
upon the
used.
cleanup, the replacing the bark mulching
I
and
don't
some
know,
of
I've
that
never
garden
used it
areas.
since it's been
Okay,
fixed up. Can't
do
get
you
a
wanna
parking space.
call him then? Rick will have me, Parks and Rec, you wanna do it? I said I'd do it if somebody else
Sure,
did.
we used to go there all the time before.
497-3003. Okay, the other thing, and I've been meaning to bring this up for about a year, I've talked about it, Evelyn and I've talked about, there's a pond at the bottom of Worthley, it's actually Tipping Rock, it becomes Worthley Road that hits Mountain Base Road, where the pond is. There's a pond, a small pond at the base there, that gets the drainage that comes off of Worthley Hill.
elongated
Oh,
one.
yeah.
And it's actually gets the runoff from the dam, from the lake. It's a holding, kind of a holding area for that. And it is totally silted in, primarily because they paved the swales all the way down the steep Worthley Hill. So of course, when they sand the road in the winter, and then the rains come, all the sand that's been on the road all winter just flows right down, and it flushes right, it doesn't even go in the culvert, it just comes into the corner of the pond. So I'm gonna say, maybe a sixth of the pond is now silted in totally, there's like a beach area, and it's getting pretty close to the culvert, which runs then under the road. And those Mother's Day floods, the water was going over the road, and that was before we had all this silt issue, so.
Yeah, 'cause that used to be open water. There used to be an impoundment there. That was
Right.
blown out during one of the storms.
Well, it's still supposed to be an impoundment, I think, to hold some water back there. But anyway, it needs to be, and I think we need to I've called the highway department periodically and mentioned it, when I see their equipment down there, oh, your equipment's here, can you take out the silt, on the road? It's not on their work order that day. So I think a letter from our Conservation Commission, if other people wanna look at it, requesting that they address that problem.
I think that's something that Gail can draft up too, and we can request.
Do you want members to look at it first, or do you want her to draft that up?
Do you wanna look at it, or do you wanna?
Oh, look
Yeah.
at what
Ask
it
her-
just needs to be, it's just being silted in, it needs to be dug out. I don't know if, you mean, people look at the pond area?
Well,
look
I
at the
think you
letter.
proposed it that the commission members maybe go and look out at it before you send out a letter, or if you're comfortable, based on Susan's,
Yeah,
she's
Evelyn
been here.
Miller lives up there, and Jean drives by it. It's, it's just filling
Yeah,
in.
I'm comfortable with the
I'm com-
recommendation.
yeah.
It seems like it could be
It's-
cheaper to address it before it turns into a problem and plugs the culvert and
And a
costs
mess.
twice as much to repair.
So let's be clear, we're gonna ask our secretary to draft a letter to, the DPW requesting that be cleared out.
Okay.
And if she wants, she can send it to me and I'll review it and make sure we're accurate on where we are and what we're talking about.
Okay.
So, okay. And I had mentioned too also for, yeah, I had written to myself that I'll draft the memo to DES about the Fourniers, saying that we wanna be involved and included. Sometimes she does it automatically for me and sometimes I do them, so I,
So on that one, you'll draft?
on that one I'll draft it, yeah, thank you. Anyone else?
The other thing I'm gonna draft, the copies of those maps that went around, can I take those with me?
You sure can.
Okay.
Yes.
David, I'll also give you, they had sent us a resource CD.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? There you go.
Celtics are on, let's go.
Motion to adjourn?
That's right.
Someone?
Oh, motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried. We'll see you all in the June 23rd meeting.